Good day, everyone. Welcome back to Media and Information Literacy. For our sixth lesson, we will be discussing the different legal, ethical, and societal issues in media and information literacy. For today, we will be covering a variety of different topics that are related to digital citizenship, the different issues in media and information literacy, such as intellectual property and plagiarism, data privacy, other forms of cybercrimes, cyberbullying, fake information, or what we refer to as fake news. We will also be discussing computer addiction and digital divide. Towards the end of our lesson, we will also be talking about netiquette. There is no doubt that the world that we are living in right now is highly advanced in terms of technology, which has, of course, been ingrained into our daily lives. For example, you have your cell phones, your smartphones that you use to communicate, talk to people. Before, robots were only part of science fiction, but right now we are living in a society that actually has a lot of robots that not only could be used in terms of industry production, but also robots that we could interact with. Similarly, the concepts of augmented reality and virtual reality have already been a great part of our discussion when it comes to technology and advancements. Aside from that, all the information that you might need, even those that you are not looking for, could easily be accessed with a touch of your finger or a click of a button. Because of all of these technological advancements, a lot of the things that we used to do have become so much easier to accomplish, especially in terms of communication, as well as forming and establishing connections with other people, regardless whether they are close to you in terms of geography or not. If you have seen the movie Spider-Man, then you probably would know about this quote. According to Uncle Ben, who was one of the characters in the franchise, he said that with great power comes great responsibility. And with advancements that we have right now in our society in terms of technology, we have harnessed so much power. We could do so much because of it. But one thing that you have to remember is that since you are holding so much power in your hand, so much potential in your hand, you also need to be responsible and accountable for what you do and how you use that power. And that is basically what we're going to talk about for today's lesson. Let us begin our discussion with unpacking the term digital citizenship. Digital citizenship, according to UNESCO in 2016, is simply your ability to find, access, use, and create information effectively. It is also described as your ability to engage with other users and with content in an active, critical, sensitive, and ethical manner, as well as navigating the online and ICT environment safely and responsibly, with you being aware of your own rights as users. Simply put, digital citizenship refers to our responsible use of technology and all the advancements that it has brought upon us, especially in this digital world. Digital citizenship also entails you knowing about the different issues in media and information literacy, because if you are aware of all of these issues, all of these potential problems, then it would be easier for you to engage, to participate in the discussion of responsible digital use. Let us take this one for example. Have you ever experienced having to come up with a very novel idea or a very good idea, but then eventually someone else stole it from you? That actually could already be an infringement of your intellectual property right. But what exactly is intellectual property? Intellectual property, according to the World Intellectual Property Organization in 2016, simply refers to the creations of the mind, such as inventions, literary and artistic works, designs, symbols, names, and images used in commerce. So it is simply a novel idea, something that is new, something that hasn't been done before that could be attributed to a specific person. There are also different types of intellectual property. The first one is copyright. Next is the patent. Third is the trademark. Next one is industrial design. And the last one is what we refer to as geographical indications and appellations of origin. Let us define all of these types one by one. Copyright is a legal term that is used to describe the rights that creators have over their literary and artistic works. And often it gives the creator the sole right to publish and sell that work. Having filed for a copyright, therefore, gives that specific person, especially the creator of that particular literary or artistic work, the right to distribute his or her own work. Meaning, no other person could use that particular literary or artistic work without the permission of the copyright owner, especially if they intend to make money out of using that particular work of art or work of literature. Filing for a copyright is very important because it protects the form of material expression and is only available for works that are fixed in tangible form, meaning it has to be something that could be touched. It could be felt by the hand. However, it is very important to remember that filing for a copyright is not always mandatory, but it is recommended. When someone violates this particular intellectual property right, then it is called an infringement. Here are some of the famous copyright infringement claims in the world. So, for example, League of Legends actually filed for a copyright infringement claim against the creators of Mobile Legends because the creators of League of Legends said that many of the aspects and features of Mobile Legends were actually derived from the game League of Legends. Another very famous copyright infringement claim is that of Freddie Mercury and David Bowie versus the creator of the song Ice Ice Baby, because they claim that some of the beats in the song are similar to the beats of the other. Another copyright infringement claim is this particular picture of Barack Obama. So this was taken by a photographer and it became very, very popular throughout the internet. And then a modern artist actually used this photograph to create his or her own work of art. Here in the Philippines, one very famous copyright infringement claim is that of Wawawi versus Willing Willy, the shows. Okay, so according to the producers and the creators of Wawawi, Willing Willy actually has the same format, same concept as that of the original show. Part of the discussion of copyright and copyright infringement claims is the term plagiarism. I know that as students, you are very much familiar with what this term is all about. Plagiarism is simply defined as an act or an instance of using or closely imitating the language and thoughts of another author without authorization, meaning without consent from that author. It could also be the representation of that particular author's work as one's own, meaning you are claiming it as your own, as by not crediting the original author. So failure to give credit where credit is due is actually an act of plagiarism. Here are some examples of common acts of plagiarism. Some of you might think that these are simple and could easily be dismissed, but actually it's not. Remember that plagiarism is an act of crime. Remember that it is an act of cheating and stealing. First, copying media, especially images from other websites, to paste them into your own papers or websites is already an act of plagiarism, especially if you are not giving credit to who it belonged to. Another example is making a video using footage from others' videos or using copyrighted music as part of your own soundtrack. That could also be an act of plagiarism. Performing another person's copyrighted music, for example, you are playing a cover and then claiming it as if it's your own song, then that could be an act of plagiarism. Composing a piece of music that borrows heavily from another composition is also an act of plagiarism. Many of you are probably wondering, what if that particular piece of media is already available on the internet as a resource? Then that is where the next concept is gonna come in, and that is the concept of fair use. We have this thing called fair use so that you don't always get to be accused of stealing someone else's work or plagiarizing someone else's work. So, what is fair use? It is basically a legal principle in which one can use a copyrighted work without a license for the following purposes. Number one, for commentary, for criticism of that particular work, for reporting about that particular work, research, you could include it, and of course, for teaching purposes, just like what I am doing right now. So many of the images that I have been using for my lectures are lifted from the internet because that's the only source that I could get them from. However, since I'm using it to teach my students, I am still under the clause of fair use. But if I am making money out of it, for example, I am selling all of these materials and making money out of it, then that could be already grounds for copyright infringement claims. There is also what we refer to as the spectrum of rights. So it begins, of course, with copyrights, wherein the use or reuse of that particular media or medium requires the permission from the copyright owner. There is also this thing called Creative Commons, which I guess you have all encountered, wherein some rights of the owner are reserved. Reuse is permitted without permission under specifications shared in the license. So there are specific clauses to it that could enable someone to reuse that particular piece of work. There are also artists and creators who make their works available for everyone, meaning there are no rights reserved or there are no restrictions to the use of that particular work. And these are all under public domain. If it's under public domain, then you could freely use that particular work without permission from the creator or the author. Another kind of intellectual property is the patent. You probably would have heard of it in terms of inventions, and that is correct because a patent is described as an exclusive right granted for an invention, which could be a product or a process that provides, in general, a new way of doing something or offers a new technical solution to a problem. Filing for a patent provides the right to consent on the invention or a way for others to use it. Therefore, filing for a patent means that you are establishing credibility as the inventor, the creator of that particular product or process, but you are also making it available for others to duplicate or replicate on their own. That is the reason why when you are filing for a patent, you are also giving the technical information about the invention to the public. Here are some of the famous patents around the world. So for example, this one, the patent that has been filed by Thomas Edison for the light bulb. The concept of the drone was filed by Edward G. Vanderlip. It is actually Apple who holds the patent for the smartphone that we know now, or the touch screen phone. Another intellectual property right is the trademark. So this one, you probably would see this on specific goods or services. This is a distinguished sign that identifies and differentiates from one enterprise to another. It is a signature mark. What makes that product, what makes that good, what makes that services different from the others? Some trademark symbols include, of course, the letter R enclosed in a circle, which is what we refer to as a registered trademark, TM, which stands for unregistered trademark, and SM, which stands for unregistered service trademark. Some of the valuable trademarks in the world include that of McDonald's, Apple, and of course, Google. Next up, we have industrial design. This intellectual property right protects only the appearance or aesthetic features of a product, such as its shape, the surface, its patterns, lines, or even the color. So take, for example, the following. These are some of the most famous industrial designs in the world. Number one is, of course, Coke or Coca-Cola's glass bottle. You would notice that the design of the bottle is very distinct to the company and could easily be attributed to Coke or Coca-Cola, the company. Another example is the red soles of the shoes of the highly popular luxury brand Christian Louboutin. And of course, last but not the least is the Vespa. Because of their industrial design intellectual property right, it is easy for us to spot a Vespa because no other scooter or motorbike manufacturers actually produce the same design as that of a Vespa. It's very distinct, it's very unique. Last but not the least, we have the geographical indications and appellations of origin. Simply put, these are signs that we usually use on products possessing qualities or status or characteristics that could be essentially attributable to that location of origin. So meaning this particular product, because of certain qualities to it, is only specific to that particular place or country. For example, to illustrate geographical indications and appellations of origin, we have, of course, strawberry jam. You would know that if it already has that Baguio special or even the name of the place, you know that it's really good because we all know that here in the Philippines, strawberries, good strawberries at that, would often come from Baguio. Similarly, we have, of course, the dried mangoes of Cebu. Here in the Philippines, all of those intellectual property rights are covered by the Intellectual Property Code of the Philippines or Republic Act 8293. Any infringement on intellectual property rights could be brought to the attention of our Intellectual Property Office here in the Philippines. So on your screen right now, you could see some of the examples of works and the validity period of infringement claims that you could make. Let us now move on to another issue in media and information literacy. Have you ever tried Googling yourself or searching for yourself on Google? Some of you might have noticed that even without you sharing those pieces of information explicitly on the internet, they are there. Other people could easily access it with a simple search on a search engine. Some of you might have also experienced having their Facebook accounts hacked or someone else trying to log in into your personal Facebook accounts. If that is the case, then most likely your data privacy has been compromised. There are actually a lot of different issues related to data privacy, which includes hacking, for example, phishing, and identity theft. When we say hacking, it simply involves activities that seek to compromise digital devices such as computers, smartphones, tablets, and even entire networks. So it's someone trying to access your own device, your personal device, remotely with the intention, of course, of doing something bad about what they're going to be able to access. It could be described as an attempt to exploit a computer system or a private network inside a computer, and could also refer to unauthorized access to or control over computer network security systems for some illicit purposes. So for something that is bad, something that is not aligned with the original intention of that particular computer, network system, and so on and so forth. Just recently, there have been issues in news about Facebook getting hacked. A few years ago, there was also someone that hacked into different government websites here in the Philippines. And a few months ago, you probably would remember that one of the biggest banks here in the Philippines got hacked and their clients lost hundreds of thousands in their accounts. Another issue on data privacy, and is actually a very common one because many people have actually fallen victim to this, is what we refer to as data phishing or phishing. It is simply described as a type of social engineering attack often used to steal user data, including login credentials and credit card numbers. It is called phishing because it is likened to actual real phishing. There's many ways in which a victim is being reeled into the act itself. However, unlike other kinds of online threats, phishing does not really require particularly sophisticated technical expertise. This is also the reason why it is very common because it is very easy to do. There are many different ways to attract your victims or to trap your victims. So take for example, on your email accounts, you probably received a lot of phishing emails such as this one. Another common issue in data privacy is identity theft. It occurs when a criminal obtains or uses personal information of someone else to assume their identity or access to their accounts for the purpose of committing fraud, receiving benefits, or gaining financially in some way. One popular example of identity theft is what this one US hacker did. This particular hacker actually assumed the identity of several rich people in America and victimized many others in the process. Despite all of these common data privacy issues and concerns, you also have to remember that your data privacy is protected by a particular law. So the National Privacy Commission is entrusted with enacting the Data Privacy Act of 2012 or Republic Act 1017-3. Aside from all of these common data privacy issues, there is also a thing that we refer to as cybercrime. Cybercrime or computer crime is any criminal activity that involves the use of a computer, a network device, or a network as an instrument to further illegal ends, to do something illegal, to commit a crime in itself. Some other forms of cybercrimes include piracy and illegal downloads, cyber squatting or staying in a particular domain for a long periods of time without even paying for that domain or service, online drug trafficking, cyber libel or cyber defamation, online harassment such as cyber stalking, internet trolling, etc., internet pornography. Similarly, alongside that, we also have online predators and other sex crimes. Here in the Philippines, cyber crimes are punishable because of the Cybercrime Prevention Act, which was enacted by the DICT or the Department in Information Communications Technology, and of course, with the help of the National Bureau of Investigation. The Cybercrime Prevention Act or Republic Act 1017-5 aims to address legal issues concerning online interactions in the internet in the Philippines. Another alarming issue in terms of technology, media, and information is what we call cyberbullying. This particular act is simply described as the use of digital means of communication that could hurt or harass a person, such as intentionally sending hurtful texts or SNS messages, posting embarrassing photos or videos, and spreading malicious rumors online. Here in the Philippines, it has been reported several times already that online bullying remains prevalent, especially towards school-age children. So many of the people involved in cyberbullying and online harassment are actually young kids, usually age 13 to 17. Not only does this affect victims mentally and leave them traumatized for a long period of time, but this could also have devastating effects that could also lead to death. Another very common issue and is actually quite alarming, especially at this time and age, is the dissemination of fake information. Fake information, or what we often refer to as fake news, are simply stories or hoaxes created to deliberately misinform or deceive readers. So there is an intention to provide misinformation and malinformation. And there is an intention to trick its readers, its audience, to believe into something else. Now, these are usually created to either influence people's views, push a political agenda, or cause confusion, and can often be a profitable business for online online publishers. So it's very prevalent here in the Philippines, especially right now during the election season. There are also many different types of false information. This includes, of course, clickbaits. You would probably experience this when visiting different websites or web pages. There are also what we refer to as propaganda, something that is not real, yet they are perpetuating it as the truth. Satires and parodies could also be considered as false information, especially if they are presented in a manner that is similar to how truthful facts are presented. Information that are also presented in a false context could already be considered as false information. Manipulated content or content that has been edited, that has been photoshopped, are all forms of false information. Misleading headlines are also providing false information. Similarly, biased and slanted news are also considered false information. Another issue that we face right now with the advent of technology, the computer, and the internet is the addiction to it. Commonly referred to as computer addiction, it is our overdependence or a damaging need to do something on a computer or the internet, and could be simply described as the excessive use of computers to the extent that it interferes with your daily life already. So you have become too dependent on using the computer, and it has negatively affected your daily life and functioning. However, you have to remember that computer addiction does not just stem from using too much computer. There are several triggers for it. One, computer games could result to computer addiction. Your addiction to computer games could actually lead to your eventual computer addiction. Online shopping, which I guess is very popular to a lot of you. Social media as well. Your addiction to social media, your dependence to social media could lead to computer addiction. Video streaming and online gambling. There are also several effects of computer addiction. For example, you might lose a lot of sleep because of your overuse of the computer. It might also develop into anxiety, depression, and may cause even relationship problems. Another very important issue that we have to discuss is the so-called digital divide. Because this does not only happen here in the Philippines, but it is already happening around the world. Digital divide is simply described as the digital inequality or gap between groups in terms of knowledge, usage, and access to ICT due to several circumstances such as the location, the income, and even the age. So take for example, during this pandemic, you would notice that the digital divide has been very, very prevalent. This is due, of course, to the fact that we had to depend to technology in order for us to connect and continue many of our everyday transactions, including, for one, education. So take this one for example. Here in the Philippines, not a lot of our students have access to the internet, a stable internet connection. Not a lot of them have access to a gadget that they could use for schooling. So even if they do want to continue with their education, since they don't have the gadget for it, they couldn't access it. Even if they have the gadget for it, they were not able to do so. Another good example that illustrates digital divide in terms of age, especially during the transition from traditional classroom to the online classroom, is the difficulty of many old teachers to use their laptops, their computers, and conduct their classes online. And obviously, since they are not born in the so-called computer generation, it's difficult for them to even manipulate the device that they have, including, of course, the many platforms that are being presented to them and are being asked of them to use. Now that you are aware of the many different issues concerning the use of media, information, and technology, it would be easy for you to practice responsible digital citizenship. Also, part of being a responsible digital citizen requires you to also follow different netiquette. So what is netiquette? It is simply defined as a set of rules for proper and acceptable online behavior. It also denotes the proper attitude that one should have and observe when communicating online. Netiquette is actually a portmanteau of the words network etiquette. According to SHEA in 1994, there are 10 core rules of netiquette. First one is remember the human. Remember that even if you are using the computer, you are still interacting with another person. Second, adhere to the same standards of behavior online that you would follow in real life. So what you want to do or what you are expected to do while interacting face to face in real life with other people, that's how you should also act when you are interacting with people online. It is also important to know where you are in cyberspace. Having knowledge of where you are also allows you to determine how to interact, how to act inside that cyberspace. You also need to respect other people's time and their bandwidth. So if it's not possible for them to join you in this particular endeavor because of limitations to their connection, then do not force it. According to the core rules of netiquette, you also need to present yourself well when you are online. So you need to make yourself look good online. If you have that knowledge, then it's best that you share your expert knowledge. But of course, remember that when you are sharing knowledge and information, stick to what is true, stick to what is factual. As a netizen, you also have that responsibility to help keep flame wars under control. So what do we mean by flame wars? If you know that two people are already fighting online, then don't add fuel to the fire. Okay, so simply put, do not engage in something that is very unproductive. Also, when you are online, please do not promote divisiveness, especially among members of the community or members of a particular group. You also have to respect other people's privacy the same way that you want them to respect your own. Having access to media, information, and technology is already power, like what we have mentioned earlier. So, as someone who is in constant use of these advancements, do not abuse that power. Be responsible, be accountable. Last but not the least, be forgiving of other people's mistakes. Here are my sources and references for this lecture. Thank you for